Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Gab with Gail. I have a super special guest for you, Amy Dempster. I do not know her personally. I've never met her. My sister is in her Earth Tender Academy. And Gloria, you guys all know Gloria. She loves Amy and she's like, you have to introduce Amy to your audience. People need to know who she is. I may say this wrong or however you can correct me, but I think Amy is here to teach the world how to communicate with Mother Earth, how to communicate with nature, or how to talk to trees. And we can all do it, you guys. She's here to teach us how to tune into the land that we are the guardian of for a little while. None of us own the land that we're on. It's not owned by us. And so welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for being on. So excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So did I say that pretty well? You can kind of introduce yourself if that's not correct.
Yeah, it kind of flows and changes here and there kind of as time goes by, and I understand, I guess you could say, my calling better and better. But for the most part, I feel like my mission here on Earth is to kind of invite people to come back in connection with the Earth and communication with the Earth, and coming back to the things that, our ancient ancestors, it was just part of their life. It was just, how they understood how they lived within nature. They were part of the ecosystem. And, we've just gotten away from that in our modern culture, and it's not that difficult to get back to, but no one's told us how to do it. So that's what I'm here to do.
I love it. I love it. Well, we were just talking story before we started this, the record button. But I think one of the biggest things is to slow down. You have some, 5 tips, but let's dive into that a little bit. Slowing down, I think that's one of my problems. I get most of my messages when I'm waking up in those twilight hours because I'm slowed down. Then the rest of the day, it's like zing, zing, zing. I meet myself in the hallway, zing. And I think that's such an important thing, is to slow your roll.
It's so true. And, it was a hard lesson for me to learn. It was the trees actually that told me. They kept saying to me, you have to go slower. And so then I, while I was out walking and so I'd slow down and they'd say, no, still too fast, even slower. It was, what we think is slow is still fast. And we just are, like you say, we're so used to moving through life, whether it's being at the grocery store or being at work or going outside and going for a walk, we're still like moving really fast and blowing through the landscape and not paying attention. And, so much of nature communication is subtle and is telepathic and is, just much more gentle than we're accustomed to noticing. So, we think nothing's happening for me. I'm not getting any messages. And it's just that we're talking too fast. We've got the earbuds in, we're moving super fast. And when you slow down, you start realizing, oh, there's things all around me that are shouting for my attention if I would just slow down and look at them.
I agree 100%, because sometimes I'll just be sitting and watching some mindless TV program and I hear one of my plants, I need water. I'm like, where did that come from? And it's like, wait, what? So I love it. And I used to have a kale plant. I moved recently, as I was telling you, and I had a kale plant, a lemon balm plant, and a lavender plant that never died. They lived through the winters. They lived through the summers. They lived through 4 winters. And I thought, they're here to nurture and, and teach me. And I actually still feel them, and still I'm sad that I had to leave them behind. I took some, clippings of them and tried to regrow them. I was successful with the lavender.
Oh, good.
But lemon balm's not looking too good. And the kale was such a thick root, like the root was so big. I just didn't want to uproot it.
I can see that being difficult to root.
Yeah, but so beautiful how nature is here to support us, and they're more than happy to do that.
They really are. And there's so much wisdom that's around us, and we just have to learn how to tune into it. And they're learning how to tune into our frequency and our energy as well. It's for most plants and trees and mountains and you know, rivers and whatnot, they haven't had that human interaction for a long time. And so you know, many of them have either withdrawn or kind of forgotten or just haven't had that kind of communication. So you know, sometimes we're hard on ourselves and we, you know, like I don't know how to do it or I'm not doing it right. But you have to remember they're trying to figure out how to tune into your frequency as well. So it is kind of a negotiation or a partnership that you have to develop, and some of them are better at others at kind of getting our attention and you know, shouting at us than others.
Well, isn't that funny how some of them are just like, you have prima donna plants. I have a friend, her name's Teresa, and she has Pixie. Pixie will play. She has a dom in her, you know, device that the plants can, you know, sing, you know, where
Yes.
they're, and she plugs it in and she does, you know, Pixie does healings. Well, one day she was in my office and she was doing these healings. She's like, Pixie just stopped playing. And I said, well, I don't know what. So she went back in there and she finally said, thank you. And Pixie's like, there you go. That's all I wanted was a thank you. And I'm like, this little chick, this little plant is hilarious.
Please acknowledge my contribution to this project.
And I said, oh my God, like all these things were so fun. And I wanted to go back to something we were talking about. You know, what do you think when people, they don't eat the actual plant, but they'll take a supplement of it? I think we lose the plant intelligence to communicate with ourselves when we're taking a supplement of something and we're not actually, you know, nurturing ourselves with the actual plant. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, every step that goes into, you know, producing something away from its natural you know, original form obviously loses something. And I think what really matters is kind of the intention and the partnership with the plant through the process. And so more importantly than kind of what format it's in is how has it been handled and how has it participated in the process. And so for the most part, you don't know that, right? With supplements, you just don't know like who harvested this plant, what was their intention, what was their energy when they did that, and then how was it mechanically processed, what was happening. And so to a certain extent, you're going to get the plant material in some form, right? It's going to work in some format because it's inherent in the plant. But I find there's a big difference when there is a partnership between what the intention is and the plant itself, because the plants they're very much aware of the fact that what their properties are and how they can assist you, and they want to participate in that way. You know, that's their gift. That's what they're able to offer to us. But I think we just in our culture have gotten really accustomed to, you know, you just pop an aspirin or pop, you know, whatever. And, you know, the pharmaceutical form is much more of an inert type of a medicine than an actual plant medicine. And so I think the more that the plant has participated in the process, the more likely you're going to get more than just the chemical compound. You're going to get the energetic compound as well.
Yeah, big pharma takes and they create a patent around it because they can't really sell us valerian root and make money off of it. So they make it Valium and they bastardize, if you will, the process. So it's really not the pure intention and the essence of valerian root anymore. So
Right.
We've lost that. Somebody told me a long time ago to put the seeds before you plant them, put them in your mouth and like, you know, get your saliva and your enzymes on them, and then you plant them and then they produce what you need for your body, which I thought it's not hard to do.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard that before, but I love that. It makes sense that they would participate in that way. And, you know, I think there's so much more happening in that exchange between the plants and our bodies, never mind like the sunshine that we're ingesting through those plants as well, the soil, you know, all of the pieces. Like I just don't think we've scratched the surface of understanding how our bodies and these plants are interacting with each other.
It's beautiful. I mean, I love my plants. I actually, you know, I'm super sensitive and I cry all the time. but I saw a watermelon. Somebody probably put it on their trunk or whatever, and they drove off, and the watermelon had just exploded on the street. And I actually cried. How much work did that plant put into to produce that watermelon that someone very just carelessly just let it roll off of their car and smash into the street? I mean, to me, that's so sad, all that energy, because everything's energy, and that's how I see things. And it's just, yeah, I'm just a little bit crazy. All right, your number two.
Hopefully its seeds found its way onto the side of the road.
Or it nurtured some birds or some ants or, something.
Somebody
but yeah, so
got it.
crazy stuff. Okay, so your second one was tune into and trust, that's the key word, your senses. And I think a lot of people, they get these intuitive hits and they don't trust it. They just think, oh, what was that? And they just kind of move on.
Yeah. And this is part of, first of all, we don't not realizing how subtle communication is. And second of all, that we haven't been taught to trust our intuition or to pay attention, or that it's important, or that it is how, this communication comes in. And I think, we maybe, have been conditioned through movies and TV and whatnot that we're going to have this very, either audio or visual, usually sensation. And we might, right? You might get that message in your head that's like, hey, I need some water. Like that happens sometimes. And sometimes you'll get an image in your head. But more often than not, most people tend to pick up intuitive information in other parts of their body. And so, they're feeling sick to their stomach or dizzy or hot or whatever. And those are just such easy things to blow off or to think are coming from somewhere else, because they don't come with a very clear message that's kind of interrupting your processing otherwise. And so it takes a little bit of time to just get accustomed to, I get this feeling in my heart every time there is, a plant or a tree that wants to connect with me, or, I personally get a very specific feeling in my stomach that I don't get any other time if I go into a building and there's an earthbound spirit in there. And so if I walk into somebody's house or a business or whatever, and I feel that in my stomach, I'm like, oh, okay, I know there's something here. But I didn't know that for a long time. Like that was through, the process of just having that experience enough times that, that I got to figure that out. And so that's, the biggest thing is tuning into those different senses so you can start noticing like, oh, I always receive messages in my right ear, not my left ear, or whatever. Like we just sense them all differently. And then actually trusting that you're not making it up, you're not imagining it, you are receiving the information. This is how the information comes in. And, you might just want to keep a little, journal or keep tracking your phone every time these things happen so that you can start kind of putting the pieces together and saying, oh, I'm picking up a lot of communication. I just didn't realize, how often it just flowed right through my system and moved on.
I'm so impressed with you. Thank you for that. Yes, when my harmonic egg will communicate with me, I hear it and feel it from the right side.
Yes.
I'll get a ringing in the ears when I'm saying something that is true. I have that clear, I just know that I know that I know.
Exactly.
And so it'll be the ringing in the ear, and I know that I know. And people will say, well, where can I research that? I don't know. How do you know? I just know. When they get the ringing in the ear, I know it's correct. Yeah. I had a funny story that just came up when you were talking about that. We're talking about mostly plants and trees, but animals. Mm-hmm. I used to date, I've been with the same guy for 9 years now. So, but I was going to go out on a date, and I owned the center called Life Center at the time, and a little woodpecker, and animals would come into the center all the time. We'd have the door open. We had a rabbit come in one time. Geese would look in the door. People would walk their dogs, and the dogs would come. We had bird poop just all down the windows because, the birds would want to perch, by the center. We had to put those little plastic spikes up because we just didn't want that poop.
Yeah.
But the landlord was like, well, no one else is having this problem. I'm like, no one else has this energy. But this woodpecker packed a little hole and made her nest inside the center at the top of the center. And I was like, this is August and it's hot. And it gets hot, heat rises. Well, she didn't stay very long, but she was there long enough. I was going to get in a car with a guy, go on a date, and she just comes out of her little hole and just, And I heard that. I heard her tell me, don't go with him. Don't get in that car. And I did not. A couple of days later, she did leave. I think it was too hot in there for her. And she left me a beautiful feather in front of the door.
Oh, beautiful. That's lovely. And it's so true. I mean, the animals are picking up, and it depends on the animal. I'm not, entirely sure which one of the, who can see and who can feel and who can, what all they know, but we're putting that frequency out and they can pick up on it really easily. And I find when I'm doing any kind of energy work, out on the land or whatever, animals like find their way in, aren't nervous about being so close to me. And so, that they can feel that energy that's happening.
Well, I think you were saying in one of your videos, and maybe it was something else, but where you said, people have dogs that, just come up to you and they're like, that dog never goes up to anybody. So yeah, they know. They're not, they're very smart. They're very intuitive.
Yeah.
So your third one is to ask permission.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like making a new friend, right? Like you wouldn't just go walk into somebody's house that you don't know and expect them to be overly, receptive about it. And the difference with nature is that, these spirits are pretty accustomed to people doing that at this point and just kind of being everywhere and not really paying any attention to them. And so, and I mean, obviously you can do that. That's kind of how we operate a lot of the time. But you'll be surprised at how much the energy shifts and how much your interaction shifts when you just ask, like, I'm going to go for a walk here today, and I'd love to communicate with anybody who wants to communicate with me. Do I have permission to be here? And 9.9 times out of 10, you're going to get a yes. And and again, it might be a yes in your head, but it might be like that the breeze kicks up right after you ask the question, or you feel that warmness in your heart, or those types of things. It may come through your senses in some other way, but really respecting that, and respecting on occasion, you might get it, we really wish you wouldn't. And being able to say, okay, I hear you, I respect you, and I will go somewhere else. But most of the time they are very excited, and people tell me that all the time. They're like, as soon as I asked, this particular tree says, oh my gosh, nobody has talked to me ever, or it's been so long since someone talked to me. We're so glad that you see us. And so it's really beautiful, kind of those communication when you respect their boundaries and ask to communicate and ask to engage with them in this way.
I love that. I went to Muir Woods Forest, the Redwood Forest in California. Love that place. Yeah. I've been there probably a half a dozen times. And there was a tree off the path, and it was like, nobody ever comes to see me. And my boyfriend, is the rule follower and I'm the rule breaker. And he's like, you're going to get thrown out of national forest forever. And I was like, I don't care. This tree wants some attention. So I go off the path and I explain to the tree, you're off the path. Like, people aren't allowed to come over here and see you. So I just put my back up against it and just gave it some love and received some love. And it was so happy. So that was really fun. And then another experience in Asheville, when we have a center in Asheville, and he has a dragon portal on his property. So at first I think he's a little crazy, right? So he's like, I got a dragon portal. And, so he said, but you have to ask permission to enter. So I'm an engineer from Detroit. So I'm like, wait, what? I don't even know what do I ask? Am I asking? Who am I asking? Right. So I just muscle checked. So I just stood there and I said, give me a yes if I lean forward, or no if I lean back. And I got a yes. So I entered the dragon portal. And I thought, I don't even know what I'm doing here. There's gnats flying all around. I'm trying to block my ears. I kept my sunglasses on because they're flying all around my face. And I look down and I see this tree root that looks kind of like a claw. Okay, I'll stop here. I stopped there and I just stood, and I felt like almost like the wind was wings and they were just circling me. Wow. And I started crying. I mean, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I've had, just connecting with the land. And when I was told there's a dragon on my property now, I thought, oh my gosh, how sad. There's just this single dragon, huge, kind of doofy dragon, like doody doody do, kind of a dragon. And I thought, oh, he doesn't have any friends. Of course, I'm assuming it's a he, but I look out over the land and I see the energy of dragons all over. So it was like so cool. So he does have friends, but
That's
just
amazing.
such a beautiful thing to yeah, I was just so excited to share you with my audience because I don't think people know they can do this. I never thought I could.
No, and I mean, I think that's the other thing that we've kind of been trained in our culture to believe, right? Like that there's special people who can do these special things. And of course I'm not one of them, right? If it's not really obvious to you. And the reality is that this is just, like I said, we are a part of the ecosystem. Like we're needed to participate. We have arms and legs and we can do things that the trees and the plants can't do. And so, when we participate with them in that process, it's a whole nother world. And like you say, I mean, you could walk right through that portal and no one would know, and the energies wouldn't interact with you and you would have no idea. But when you consciously interact and you ask permission and you tune in, you'll have these beautiful experiences. And it's just really remarkable.
Yeah. And so at the end, we're going to make sure you guys, you're going to know how to get a hold of Amy so you can join her academy or follow her or whatever. The next one is to ask the questions. Once you're tuned in.
Yeah. And that's really, I mean, I think that's what we all want to get in a hurry to do anyway, right? Is like, have the conversation, ask questions, tune in. But, it's the same thing. You're getting to know a new friend. And so, you might have questions that you want to ask that you're interested in, but you might also want to get to know them a little bit better. And so, take some time to ask them questions. What's their experience? What do they want you to know? What would they like you to do? Do they need help with anything? Really kind of taking time to get to know them before you're saying, hey, can you help me with something? Will really go a long way in your partnership and your communication. And, I think a lot of times, also we think like that this takes a lot of time or energy, and obviously as much time as you want to spend outside, you'll always be rewarded and feel better after being outside. But if you think about the lifetime of a tree, let's say, I mean, and if you showed up once a week for 30 minutes, that is more interaction than they have with any human really ever, that's going to come and talk to them for 30 minutes a week. And so it really doesn't have to be a huge commitment of time, but in that time, you will be amazed at kind of the wisdom and the information that they have to share.
Yeah. And sometimes, like you said, you ask them a question, not a question of what you need, but a question of what they need.
Right.
And they wanted you to pick up some garbage and take care of the little liquor bottle or something that was leaning against a tree, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want that there.
Right. And they saw me coming. Yeah, that was a number of years ago. I was in a big city, like walking down the street, and I heard a tree like, come over here. And I was like, did I really just, did I hear that right? and I, from where I was at, I couldn't see what it needed or why it would be, calling me. And so I walked up over to it, and there was an empty liquor bottle that somebody had leaned against the tree, and the tree was like, could you move that, like, and throw that away? So, my reputation preceded me that I would be someone who would come help them out.
So I love it. Well, thank you for doing that for the tree. I mean, and you got to think about it. They don't have arms. They can't pick the bugs off. They can send messages to birds to come eat the bugs off. They can do so many things. They're so intelligent, and they have so much intelligence for us. And so, so then the last one is gratitude, or thanking them.
Yeah. And really, I mean, that it probably goes without saying, but just taking a moment to say thank you for communicating with me, thank you for interacting. I appreciate our relationship. And so, and that can be done in a lot of ways. I mean, just expressing your gratitude, obviously, but if you have your water bottle with you while you're out for a walk, you could pour a little bit of water, in offering, or you could, maybe you find a feather while you're out walking, and then you leave it with the plant or the tree that you chatted with and interacted with, whatever you'd like to do. And I think, people are always like, well, what offering should I do for this? Or what would be the right thing? it's all about your intention. You know, you're in the energy that you're using is what's important. And so it can be, you know, anytime I'm going out for a walk or a hike, you know, where I have a bag, I have a very small little brass singing bowl, and I almost always just put it in my bag. The trees love it. They absolutely, it's like everybody stands at attention, like when they hear me play it. And so, you know, I can just play the singing bowl as an offering, just to give my gratitude. So there's lots of different ways to do that, but just taking the time to say, I appreciate you, and let me share something of myself with you.
Yeah. I mean, I think they can feel our heart energy, you know, and so much gratitude. Whenever I pick something off of my garden plan, I always thank it. Thank you for this, you know, and I feel like it's so invasive if you just pull it, you know, and it's like, how rude, you know?
Right.
Anytime I pluck something off, whether it's a leaf for my smoothie from my kale, and I think that's why they stuck around for so many years, is that, you know, they appreciated my gratitude.
Absolutely.
And they was so fun. I mean, they survived winters
Yeah.
where everything else froze. They're like, we have to stay well for her. We have to do this. And so much strength and so
Yeah.
much persistence, I guess, you know, is a word.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that the gratitude is so important. And I think we forget that these things are living, breathing things. They have energy. Even when I eat an apple, I still like, oh, thank you. I'm thankful for the tree that provided that apple for me, and try to bless my food. And I think we just get away from that. Another funny story, I have a nephew and he's 9, and it's my sister's son. And I have this little witch's kitchen card. So he was over and we all pulled a card. He pulled the card Rosemary.
Okay.
So we're sitting by the garden, and you know, he had his seat, and we were building fires. We were out there every evening by my garden, and we have a little fire pit. And after he left, I'm not kidding you, I don't even know, I can't explain this any other way, but he attracted the energy of this rosemary. It was growing up through the crack of one of the cement things. And I thought, what is that? And I rubbed the leaf and smell it. It was rosemary.
Oh, how funny.
And I had grown rosemary there years back, but it died.
Yeah.
But after his energy was there, he pulled the rosemary card, and this little rosemary thing just sprouted up where he was sitting.
How
Is
funny.
he a magical rosemary fairy? Or, you know, it was like, what in the world? But that plant wanted to be in that energy field. I mean, just to me, it just blows my mind how intelligent plants are.
They really are, and they know what we need as well. So, you know, that might have been a plant that would be supportive of him in some way, you know, whether energetically or physically. And so, you know, it's taking every opportunity to say, look at me.
So crazy, so crazy. Well, do you have any other thoughts, or just want to tell people how to get a hold of you? How can they find you?
Yeah. So you can find me online at Following Hawks, like the bird. So followinghawks.com. And I have a podcast called The Earth Keepers, and where I talk about all of this and much, much more. And and you can find my Earth Tenders Academy, and everything else is all on my website.
I love it. I love it. Your work is amazing. Thank you so much for being who you are. And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.